Hey everybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Dark Souls. I am the Reverend Deadlypudding, as usual. We are in Orlando. That's where we last left off. Ah, praise the sun. I don't have the praise the sun gesture. Fuck. Okay. Now, there's a lot of things to do in Anne Orlando and a lot of ground to cover. Can't promise I'm going to cover it all in this particular series of episodes, but I'm going to do my best. First thing I'm going to do, and it's sort of ill-advised, but I want to see how much damage I do to these guys. I'm going to have to fight one later anyway, so in some ways just best to go ahead and see how it goes. 219. I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with missing. Yeah, I'll deal with that. That's good. There's a couple of items that I want to get. Ooh, okay. Do not want to get hit. Oh, okay. That was a bad angle. That guy's content to just basically get himself killed, though, so you know what it is. No, that's a normal chest. I had to think about it. Demon Titanite, yeah. Oh yeah, and this lovely little gentleman right here. Now in the opposite chamber, over there, there's another item I'm gonna go pick up. Ooh, I love Anne Orlando. Now, I want to talk about some things today. I did a stream the other day, some people might know, with a friend of mine. Got him to play some Dark Souls with me. Sort of. Couldn't quite get co-op summoning to work, and you know, multiplayer's another beast. I'll go into at a different time, not in this particular spiel. But I want to talk about what... That's a bad roll. I want to talk about what he thought about the game, and just in general, some criticism that he had for the game. He's not a big fan at all. He is pretty upset over his experience, to say the least. The game just did not appeal to him whatsoever, and that's fine, you know. At the end of the day, it's going to appeal to different people. I gave him some crap, but I didn't really mean it too much. I kept calling him like a baddie. You know, the typical thing with the with some of the Dark Souls community, like you'll see on Reddit or something, the whole Kazul thing. That's not the role that I meant to make. But excuse me. But you know, he talked a lot about the combat feeling clunky. Ooh, now this is a mimic right here. Sorry, I just had to think about that for a second. He talked about the combat being clunky, and you know, it's... This is going to sound weird to say it this way. I think that's somewhat a matter of opinion, but also somewhat kind of a bullshit statement to make. Because he compared it to like the combat of God of War. And that's an awful comparison. For one, first of all, two games, nothing alike. Yeah, you could say, oh, it's, you know, a third-person action game where you use weaponry. No. I mean, that's just kind of a very poor comparison to make in that sense. But yeah, that's what he was trying to say, and he was comparing it to the fast-paced action. Now, in God of War, and I've played the first two God of Wars, and I know he's played the first two God of Wars and not played any after that, so this is nothing to do with God of War 3 or God of War Jerk Off on My Titties 4, if they've even made one, I don't really know. But in the God of War series, my experience with the combat in that is you're oftentimes fighting groups of enemies. Ah, come on. You're not fighting. I swear I've never seen that attack before from these guys. Anyway, you're never really like taking on singular enemies in God of War. Not often, at least, unless it's like a boss, you know. In which case, you're always like racking up hits on bosses, you know. When you fight a boss, it's an attempt to rack up hits, you know. And I'm sorry, I had to go quiet a little bit. This guy's giving me some trouble for whatever reason. I kind of want to cut his tail off, even though I've already gotten the axe from the other gargoyle before, so I don't really have to worry about it. But just kind of being a little silly. Anyway, ooh, gargoyle halberd. Anyway, and God of War, you don't often fight one enemy. When you do, it's still very fast-paced. You're comboing hits on things, but primarily you're fighting more than one enemy, and you want to be able to attack fast and in huge wide arcs, because that's the nature of the game. And the enemies generally don't pose a threat on their own. Some enemies are particularly tough and require a little bit more finesse, but overall, you know, you could take on, you know, the hardest enemies in the game. You could easily take on a handful of them at one time and not really have a problem in the game. And furthermore, God of War is primarily an action game at its heart, at its core. You know, it's not an RPG. This is an RPG with some sort of progression and scaling, and weaponry and whatnot. You know, there's some progression in God of War, but you don't really. It's not the same kind of thing. It's a very facade of RPG. You know, it's a shallow system of upgrading, because the main lore of the game is that you're going around ripping up hordes of enemies, sort of. And I guess to some people, they like the story, you know. It's very... I think it captures the mythology of Greece very well, but the story's not really gonna win any awards if you ask me. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We're not comparing stories. We're talking about the combat. So, Dark Souls combat, though, it's slower, obviously. Let me rest here first, and I'll do some demonstration of what I'm about to talk about here. So, I mean, it's slower, obviously. I mean, if I was to swing this, you know, that's a pretty slow swing, and the nature of the halberd also makes it to where I stumble a little bit because I missed. Well, I guess this is good enough as any. That's a punch from the Pyromancy Fist, and you can see that's a somewhat of a slow punch. There's a wind up to it, you know. The game's combat is not fast. I don't think anyone would ever say it's fast. Some of the weapons, let me see if I can find a weapon that's kind of small and okay, I can't use that effectively, but we'll see what I can do. So you can do that with like the Ricard's Rapier, and that's kind of fast, you know. Let's see what else I can try to put on. And you know, Falchion. Falchion's a pretty fast weapon for the weapons in this game. It's not like super fast. You can still tell the wind up very easily, but you know, still, it's not as slow as some of the other weapons in the game. But all this has a purpose, because the game, I feel that the combat and the enemies go hand in hand. And this game, it's meant to test you. It's meant to be challenging, and therefore each individual enemy poses its own challenge, its own hazard, which in turn means that the combat is going to be, slower, because you're focused, you're more focused, and so it's a more direct sparring type of combat. And I mean, if you basically are playing the game and you don't like how that feel is, or if you're trying to play it like it's a God of War, or I think really the better comparison, if you're going to make a comparison to anything, I guess compare it to something like the Elder Scrolls, maybe Diablo, but even Diablo is a pretty poor comparison. Elder Scrolls probably is the closer comparison, and that's still a stretch if you ask me. But if you compare it to the Elder Scrolls, and the combat's very shallow in Elder Scrolls, personally, I feel that way. But yeah, so when you look at it in comparison to like the Elder Scrolls, it's slower than that too, Elder Scrolls combat is, let me put it this way, it's easy to block, it's easy to not get yourself in a bad situation in Elder Scrolls. Like if you get hit by an enemy in Elder Scrolls, yeah, it doesn't matter. You can heal it up later or regenerate it, whatever you do, It's just not a big deal. In this game, though, a hit does mean something. It's very much a problem. It's gonna be so rough trying to talk about this game and do this part. Oh man. Okay. But what I'm trying to say is, in this game, a hit will slow you down. It's gonna cause you some problems. It's gonna piss you off to get hit in this game. But the thing is, you've still got great defensive options. You've got a dodge roll, you've got shields, you've got, you can try to be offensive. I don't mean offensive as in like fuck your mother offensive, but offensive as in, attacking first. But at the end of the day, getting hit is a punishment, whereas in the Elder Scrolls it's not a punishment. Take that as you will, if you're a particularly big fan of Elder Scrolls or something, whatever, but, I think there should be a punishment to getting attacked, and that's what happens in Dark Souls. And as for the speed of the combat, I was thinking about it after I said it. In Elder Scrolls, the combat is, I guess you could say, technically faster, but it is kind of slow still. And the combat's not as involved. It's really not. When I really mean it. Oh, I'm so glad I killed that guy too. I really mean it when I called the combat shallow in Elder Scrolls. It is fairly shallow combat. I can't think of another way to really describe it. It's very much, swing your weapon until the enemy dies kind of combat, and that's not something that appeals to me whatsoever. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. I had to get quiet for that. This is one of the three big challenges of Anne Orlando, if you ask me. Whew, boy. I'm almost done with it. Yeah, so in Elder Scrolls, my experience with it, at least, the combats, you got your magics and you got your melee, and your melee is generally, you got your normal attacks, and then you can charge up your attacks to have, like, a strong attack, and you know, each of the 4 different main directions or something, and they each kind of have slightly different effects. You know, sometimes you can shield bash if you have a shield, but I mean, a lot of it is kind of meh. Now, just as an aside, I mentioned earlier in this playthrough that I was going to get all the major items in the game. That is a consumable. I'm not going over there. That's a pain in the ass. Just deal with it. I'm sorry. So, but in this game, you've got such a wide variety of attacks, and the fact that every weapon has a, you know, a different type of attack to it is just phenomenal, if you ask me. Whereas in Elder Scrolls, the weapons all have kind of a very similar attack style. I don't believe there's really any difference between the attacks, except for maybe if you're one-handing or two-handing, or dual-wielding, in the case of Skyrim. Personally, you know, I think that's kind of lazy, but you know, I will also admit that they've certainly put a lot of stuff in the Elder Scroll games, and you know, if there's one thing I'm going to give them a lot of credit for, it's world building. I mean, those worlds are huge, and I will certainly give Bethesda. It is Bethesda, isn't it? Yeah, it's Bethesda. I'll give them credit for making such gigantic worlds, and that truly is something amazing. Don't get me wrong. It's just not, the combat in it is just not appealing to me. Another aside, I'm walking down here because I want to pick up an armor set in here. There's a ton of these guys in here, so I'm going to take it rather slow. Somewhat slow. And, you know, so that's why I would play an Elder Scrolls game. It's just for the world that it has, not at all for the combat. But some people like it, whatever. You know, that's their cup of tea at the end of the day. Now, in Dark Souls and Demon Souls, you know, I can't leave out Demon Souls because Demon Souls was the original, and I mean, I guess if I was a true old school fan, I would probably bring up something like Kingsfield, but I honestly never played a Kingsfield game. I assume there's some similarities, but I'm thinking that probably the system that was in place for Demon Souls is pretty much the primary system that they're going off of. I don't think it goes back any further than that. And anyway, this whole system I think is great for their design, that, you know, you want to attack enemies primarily one at a time, and you've got this very much it's like a dedicated one-on-one battle, and it's, you know, to me it's very cerebral and strategic, and I love that. I don't like playing a game where the combat is just let me hit this guy a bunch of times and he'll die. I like this right here, to where I'm like, okay, I know what attack that is. I'm going to parry it, and I'm going to riposte this guy because I know what attack he's throwing out. I've read the enemy properly, you know? I just don't feel like you can do that in something like the Elder Scrolls, or now let's go back to the God of War comparison. The enemies in God of War do have tails, certainly, because I mean there is dodging in God of War that you can do. Which, you know, what's the point of dodging if you can't tell that an enemy's about to attack? The problem is that it's shallow, you know? I forget if there was some kind of reward system to dodging. I think it probably had to do with like a super meter or something, you know, some crap like that. And the super meters were, I don't know if I particularly like that style in games, in action games. I seem to remember when I played Castlevania Lords of Shadow, it had a meter that you would, if you got hurt, that would diminish the meter. And you know, I kind of was not a big fan of Lords of Shadow. It was very much like a God of War game, except it was very, very punishing. Admittedly, like the enemies were no joke in that. It's something I might go back and play, but it just wasn't my style of game. Even though I'm sitting here talking about like really enjoying mastering a difficult game, and then I'm like, you know, Lords of Shadow was kind of difficult, and it wasn't my style of game. I don't think I'm going to play it. Makes me sound maybe a bit hypocritical, but it is what it is. It's not my style of game. Alright, got the black iron armor, which is the same armor as the Iron Tarkus, who we got a glimpse of in one of the last few parts. So, the combat, though, getting back to the topic, this is definitely going to be the topic of the video. The combat, though, in Dark Souls, with its whole methodical approach, it makes it, like I said, it makes it methodical and strategic, and that's the kind of style that I like, personally, and I just don't like swinging at people. I don't know if I'm kind of repeating myself here. There was a point I was just about to make, though, and I'm grasping for it. Oh yeah, I was just going to mention too that it's not only that, but that there's so many particulars to the weapons. I've already mentioned before that when you miss with the halberd, you know, you miss your attacks here, you do a stumble. There's a cooldown to it, but if you actually hit with a halberd attack, you recoil much faster and can attack again. And that's very I don't think it's unique to the halberd class. I think like the clubs might also have that style as well. Okay, I can't really test it on the wall unless it rebounds, I guess. Let me just pull up Morning Star. Ooh, okay, let's see. I can't really tell. It looks like maybe they stumble a little bit. I feel like there's a stumble there. I really do. But while we've got it out, you know, I'll also mention that there is a particular I know for the the clubs and the axes, is that there's a direct hit system in the game. Whereas if you hit with the actual point of the weapon, then you'll do a little bit more damage. Whereas if you hit with like the handle, you won't do as much damage, and that's a very subtle thing. It's not something you would outright notice unless you spend a good deal of time with the Morning Star or an axe or something like that in this game. And I do enjoy the combat also for that reason, that there's so many little things like that that make the combat so unique. Now, I'm going to go back to the bonfire now, since I got this bridge down. I think I might level up a couple of times. We'll see. I guess I should mention a couple of things that I've done the past couple of past few minutes while I've been talking about all this combat nonsense. Not really nonsense, but while I've been talking about the combat and everything, I've been running around here doing a few things. I went into the building over there, which where you walk on top of the rafters and fight the I forget what they call it. Painting Guardians, yeah. And that's a real sketchy part. If you don't have a bow, that point, man, I don't even know what to tell you. That's scary. It's really scary. Let's see, 291, 292. I'm leveling up. Yeah, I'm gonna level up dexterity and strength. I was gonna level them up anyway because I want to get more damage out of my halberd. But I'm also thinking about trying out a weapon. It's gonna require a decent bit of dexterity and strength soon. Not immediately, but soon. I hate this elevator. It's just really annoying to have to wait for it. I don't... Oh, shoot. That was almost a thing. Let me, I don't particularly like the beckon one. I'm going to switch that out because I can't remember if I picked up something good. Oh, hurrah. I've got the hurrah gesture. Yeah, I'll put that there. This is hurrah. Yeah, if I just randomly show off a gesture, it's just because I happen to think of it. I don't normally do that. Alright, so we took out the two gargoyles here. They didn't actually do their attack, but they're lightning-based gargoyles. They will shoot lightning. Instead of the ones, the bell gargoyles that did fire, these guys do lightning, so that's pretty cool. It means that if you're rocking the lightning spear from Sin's Fortress, you're not going to do as much damage to them as you'd like to. That's partly why I just focused on having a +10 halberd rather than the lightning spear. For most people, though, the lightning spear is going to be the best weapon they've picked up by that point in the game. They'll probably be rocking maybe like a +5 weapon by that point, or something worse if they just absolutely screwed up with their weapon refinement. Now, I'm going to just fight this guy, even though that's pretty much the whole reason it was kind of a bad idea. I mean, you know, it is what it is, it happens. Did he drop? No, he didn't drop anything. Anyway, some people like to run by these guys, but I don't. I think they tether... I'm not really sure where they tether at. Yeah, I guess about right there. I was getting ready to fight that guy, though, in one of the worst situations I could. I never picked up the binoculars, so I can't really take a look around this area and show off some things. You'll just have to... Oh, I've got a bow. I can show it off with a bow. Alright. So we got these asshole guys down here. Lightning demons, what would be called? That's what I would call them. I like to throw these like spears of lightning. And I guess that guy's just going to be pretty content to throw spears of lightning. Yeah, come on. Come up here, friendo. Well, I didn't really want to get hit by him, but... You know, it is what it is. I think this guy will slide off. Yeah, that's what happened. I knew they would stumble, so that's kind of why I just went ahead and took the hit. Now, it gets interesting. Oh boy, does it get interesting. Okay, now there weren't any items around here. Let's see if we can get a good look at this guy. Oh, there it came. Oh boy. Probably one of the most infamous challenges in this game. that's coming up right here in a minute. Let's see if we can lead these guys up the flying buttress here. I think this is a flying buttress. I meant to actually look that up earlier to see if it was. Okay, that guy's gonna be content to just run around right there. Oh my god, I don't want to fight him right here. Okay. Okay. I was trying to roll towards him and then not get hit, but that's not exactly what happened, unfortunately. Oh boy. That's not really going to help me to S this up, but I did it anyway because it makes me feel safer, I guess. Now, there's just a few ways to do this point. If you see what we've got to do, we've got to go up this buttress, and then we've got a safe zone, and then we've got another buttress to run up, and we'll be on the same ledge with the archers, who are, like, straight up just, like, shelling us right now. Also, look at the size of those motherfucking arrows. These guys. Oh my god. Well, there you go. That was a good look at it right there. Those aren't arrows. Those are freaking spears. Those are like tiny spears. Well, not even tiny spears. They're like spears for midgets. Anyway, I need to stop kind of being annoying and let them stop shooting. Also, I'm glad this message was here because I meant to say it and almost forgot. The other way to tackle this situation, which will take forever, but you know, you do what you got to do sometimes. If you come back here, kind of like right here. See, I can kind of look at this guy some. He's not going to shoot at me from way back here. I'm actually too far away, believe it or not. If you have poison arrows, you can actually poison these guys. Getting a shot on them is hard. Let's take a look at the arrow drop off here. So you can see drops. That actually hit him. But you want to actually pretty much headshot these guys if you're going to try to poison them. And you'll want to get a few of those headshots in once you get the right spot. And that'll poison them. And then it's the waiting game to let him die of poison. It takes several minutes. But once he does, you're pretty much safe. Because the guy on the right is the most dangerous one. The guy on the left is... he's just there. It's more of a hassle to try to even kill that guy than it is the guy on the left. Now, what are we going to try to do when we get up there? We're going to try to kill the guy on the right. And, oh boy, is that going to be a hassle. Especially if that happens. I swear that was... I don't think I've ever seen them fire a preemptive arrow like that. Usually the arrows hit where you were. They really don't ever hit where you're going to be. At least I've never seen it. I mean, typically you can just run up that buttress, like straight on, and you won't get hit. Sorry, excuse me, I got something on my teeth. Okay, that's better. Now that they've stopped, that means when I run out from here I won't get immediately raped and knocked off the edge. Now that they've stopped, this is the moment of truth. This is it. This is for all the marbles right here. Okay, I kind of slowed down because... oh, please don't shoot your arrow. Oh my god, you're such an asshole. Okay, this is actually good. Oh boy. Okay, we're home free. Ooh. Man, am I happy to get that in one try. That's all you gotta do. But if you don't know how those guys attack, you're probably that's gonna be rough right there, because you got to learn how that dude attacks real quick. So the best way to kill him is a parry. So that's why I recommend, if it's your first time through, just get the poison arrows from earlier on. You'll be fine. Thankfully, there's a bonfire in here.